Good afternoon. Welcome back. It is Sunday, August 27th, 2023. We have a few birthdays and a few events to talk about real quickly here. And I actually got several events to talk about. On this day in 1978, Mario Andretti would win the final F1 race of his career in the Zandvoort Holland Grand Prix, or Netherlands Grand Prix, I believe it was called. In 2000, Joe Ruttman won the truck race at Chicago. This was the first truck race at Chicago, but not Chicagoland. It was the track on the western side of Chicago proper, or however they have it all mapped out. But it was the Chicago Motor Speedway, which I believe the land now is a Walmart and some other commercial sites. 2006 at Sears Point in the IndyCar Series, Marco Andretti won his first career IndyCar race. 2016 at Road America, Michael McDowell won his first Xfinity Series race driving for Richard Childress. 2017 at the same track, Road America, Jeremy Clements won his first career Xfinity Series race. And Road America seemed to be a track that a lot of drivers got their first wins. I believe Brendan Gaughan got his. I want to say, was it Nelson Piquet Jr. got an Xfinity Series nationwide win there? And somebody else. There's always these tracks that just always pop up and give you a lot of first-time winners. And 1 year ago today, Austin Dillon won the race at Daytona, checking his box into the playoffs as a huge crash late in the race occurred that wiped out most of the leaders. Matter of fact, wiped out most of the field. But that happens. So let's go to a few birthdays that we have to celebrate today. Born on this day in 1949, but sadly he passed away in 1998, which would have been a really, really big year for him in the sport. But T. Wayne Robertson, many of you might not know that name. He was very instrumental in helping the branding of the Winston Cigarette Company, making programs like the Winston All-Star Race, the Winston Million, the Noble 5 program, and so many other things in between. And it really, really helped elevate NASCAR to a new level, especially as, Winston came in the early 70s and left in the early 2000s. But in between there, you had people like T. Wayne that were really, really instrumental in making a lot of programs happen, making a lot of money and an influx of funding come in that helped a lot of teams over the years. So for our birthdays, born on this date in 1959, former F1 driver Gerhard Berger. And here he is pictured with Ayrton Senna. So there's a little bit about him when he was driving for Team McLaren. But I know he drove for Ferrari. I want to say he drove for Williams. He drove for all the big teams. He drove for some small teams and teams in between that roster there, the F1 roster. Next on our birthday list, born on this date in 1944. He was a crew chief there in the late 80s to mid-90s. Not sure what he's up to now, but again, born on this date in 1944, Mr. Richard Broome. Of course, he was crew chief here for Kenny Schrader, Hendrick Motorsports. He's pretty successful, had a couple wins with Kenny in 91. He moved over later on to be crew chief. Looks like he was with the Quaker State car here, but with Brett Bodine when, let's see what it says here. Don't know why. Yeah, he joined King Racing in August as team manager. I forgot about that stint. Then he went over and became crew chief with Ricky Rudd's team, I believe, after the closure of Kenny Bernstein's team. So he had had a lot of teams that he worked with there. And our final birthday, born on this date in 1940, passed away in 2005, former owner in the Cup Series and dabbled in the Xfinity Series a little bit as an owner, Mr. Chuck Ryder. Now, Chuck came on board in the mid-80s as a owner, and he bought out the Bear team that was owned by Bob and Richard Bear, and he actually was a co-owner because there's three people. The team is called Bahari, Bahari, which took the first two letters of each of their last names, which was Bear, Ryder, and Harry. Lawrence Harry was the other member involved with that, so Bahari. And then he eventually bought them out. I believe Chuck Ryder also owned All Pro Auto Parts, which was based out of the Charlotte area. Let's see if it says anything about that on this one. It doesn't, but I remember hearing about on podcasts and stuff that he did own the All Pro Auto Parts based out of the Charlotte area. If you go back to 87, that was a sponsor on Michael's car for most of the year. Then in 88, they picked up Country Time, ran that through 89. Then in 1990, they picked up a co-sponsor with Maxwell House along with Country Time. Then from 91 to 96, his teams were sponsored by Pennzoil. 91 to 97. Then in 98, they had the Gum Out line from Pennzoil. And then after that, they just kind of had a rotating sponsorships, and then he ended up selling his team to Jack Birmingham, renumbered at 27. It became Eel River Racing, which Jeff Fuller and Mike Bliss drove it for in 2000, and Kenny Wallace in 2001. So really, that is all we have for our birthdays and events today. We did have quite a few events, so remember tomorrow morning, Mailbag Monday, going through more NASCAR hero cards. So anyway, thanks again for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We will see you tomorrow.